The mining station orbited the dead planet of Kepler 4042c, its massive extractors pulling precious metals from the barren surface below. Commander Sarah Chen watched the operation through the observation deck, her coffee growing cold as she reviewed the quarterly reports. The United Earth Mining Consortium had been profitable for 3 decades, but something felt different about this particular dig site. Dr. Marcus Webb burst through the airlock, his environmental suit still dripping with decontamination fluid. His face was pale, eyes wide with excitement and terror. Sarah had never seen the xenoarchaeologist look so shaken, and they had worked together through some of the strangest discoveries in human space. "Commander, we need to stop the extraction immediately," Marcus gasped, pulling off his helmet. "What we found down there changes everything we know about human history." Sarah set down her coffee and turned to face him fully. "What kind of discovery are we talking about, Marcus? Another extinct civilization? Fossil remains?" Marcus shook his head violently. "No, ma'am. We found a cryogenic facility. Massive. Underground. And it's still operational after what our dating suggests is over 2 million years." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. 2 million years was long before humans had even developed basic tools, let alone space travel. Sarah felt her stomach drop as the implications began to sink in. "There's more," Marcus continued, his voice barely a whisper. "The facility contains over 50,000 stasis pods, each one designed specifically for human physiology. Not humanoid, human, down to the genetic markers." Sarah gripped the edge of her console. "That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for 3 centuries. We've traced our evolution back to Earth. There's no gap in the fossil record that would suggest—" "Commander!" The voice of Lieutenant Torres crackled through the comm system. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Something's powering up down there." Through the observation windows, they could see lights beginning to emerge from the excavation site. Not the harsh white of human technology, but a soft, pulsing blue that seemed almost alive. The light spread outward from the dig site like veins covering the planet's surface in an intricate network of glowing pathways. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to evacuate, now. If that facility is coming online after all this time, there's no telling what security measures might activate." But before Sarah could give the evacuation order, every screen on the station flickered and went dark. When they came back online, they displayed the same image, a face that was both alien and hauntingly familiar. The being had elongated features, skin that seemed to shift between silver and blue, and eyes that held an intelligence spanning millennia. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of ages. "Children of Terra," the being said, her voice somehow reaching them despite the vacuum of space. "You have disturbed the nursery. You have awakened the mother." The entity's gaze seemed to pierce directly through the screen, finding each human on the station individually. Sarah felt exposed, as if every secret, every memory, every genetic marker was being analyzed and catalogued. "I am Queen Zephyra of the Celestial Dominion," the being continued. "And you little ones are my greatest creation and my deepest shame." The station shuddered as something massive rose from the planet's surface. Through the observation deck, they could see structures emerging from the ground, spires that reached toward the stars, each one pulsing with that same blue energy. The dead planet was transforming before their eyes, revealing technology that dwarfed anything humanity had ever imagined. Dr. Webb's tablet beeped with incoming data from the surface. His face went even paler as he read the reports. "Commander, the genetic analysis is complete. The DNA samples we recovered from the facility, they're human, but they're older than our oldest fossils. This suggests that humans didn't evolve on Earth. We were placed there." Queen Zephyra's image flickered, and when it stabilized, her expression had changed from regal authority to something resembling maternal fury. "You were supposed to remain on your garden world. You were supposed to grow slowly, safely, under careful watch. But you have spread like wildfire across the galaxy, consuming and destroying." Sarah found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "What are you saying?" "That humanity was created by your people." The alien queen's laugh was like the sound of crystal breaking. "Created? Oh, little commander, I did not create you, I am you. I am the first human, the template from which your entire species was grown, and you have disappointed me beyond measure." The mining station's hull groaned as massive ships began to emerge from the planet's surface. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, their designs incorporating organic curves with technological precision. The implications were staggering. If this being was telling the truth, then humanity's entire understanding of its place in the universe was wrong. Lieutenant Torres's voice came through the comm again, this time edged with panic. "Commander, we're detecting over 200 ships emerging from the planet. Energy signatures are off the charts. And ma'am, they're heading directly for Earth." Queen Zephyra's image leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You have 3 of your days to prepare, children. I'm coming home to see what you have done with my gift of existence. And if I find that you have become the cancer I fear you have become, I will correct my greatest mistake." The transmission cut off, leaving the mining station in silence except for the hum of life support systems and the sound of Dr. Webb's tablet hitting the floor. Sarah stared at the now empty screen, her mind racing through the implications. If humanity was truly the creation of this ancient being, then first contact wasn't a meeting between 2 species. It was a parent coming to judge her wayward children. And based on Queen Zephyra's tone, humanity was about to receive a failing grade. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in the deepest bunker beneath Geneva, 3 kilometers underground and shielded by enough metal and concrete to withstand a direct nuclear assault. President Elena Vasquez looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders, admirals, generals, scientists, and politicians who had spent their careers preparing for first contact. None of them had prepared for this. Admiral Jiang Wei, head of the Solar Defense Force, placed his hands flat on the table. "The fleet moving toward Earth consists of vessels we can't even begin to comprehend. Our most advanced battleships look like children's toys compared to what's coming. Energy readings suggest each of their ships could glass an entire continent." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading xenobiologist, pulled up holographic displays of the genetic data transmitted from the Kepler mining station. "The DNA analysis confirms what the entity claimed. Human genetic markers found in those stasis pods predate our species by millions of years. But there's something else. The genetic template shows modifications, enhancements that modern humans don't possess." "What kind of enhancements?" President Vasquez asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Extended lifespan, resistance to radiation, enhanced cognitive capacity, and most disturbing of all, genetic locks that appear to have been deliberately disabled. It's as if someone took the original human template and removed the safety features." General Patricia Morrison, scarred veteran of the Martian Independence War, leaned forward. "Are you telling us that we're defective copies?" Dr. Tanaka shook her head. "Not defective, unrestricted. The original humans were designed with built-in limitations. We're what happens when those limitations are removed. The question is, why were they removed and by whom?" The massive screens around the bunker showed real-time tracking of Queen Zephyra's fleet. The ships moved through space at velocities that shouldn't have been possible, arriving at each gravity well, and somehow folding space around themselves. They would reach Earth in less than 60 hours. Commander Sarah Chen, hastily transported from the mining station, stood to address the council. "There's something else you need to know." Before the transmission ended, our sensors detected energy patterns coming from Earth itself, specifically from 17 locations around the globe, ancient sites we've always assumed were purely human constructions. Admiral Zhang pulled up a global map marked with pulsing red dots. Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, Easter Island. Every major archaeological mystery on Earth is showing the same energy signature as the facility on Kepler 442c. The implications were staggering. Humanity's greatest mysteries weren't human achievements at all, but remnants of this ancient civilization. The very foundations of human culture and development had been guided by technology they didn't understand. President Vasquez rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of the species on her shoulders. "Options? I need options. Can we fight?" "No," Admiral Zhang said without hesitation. "Our entire combined fleet wouldn't scratch the paint on one of their ships. We could evacuate perhaps 100,000 people to the outer colonies. But that's a fraction of Earth's population. Can we negotiate?" Dr. Webb, who had been silent since arriving, finally spoke up. The entity, Queen Zephyra, she seemed genuinely angry, but also hurt, like a parent discovering their children had burned down the house. "There might be a chance if we can prove that humanity has value, that we've grown beyond whatever disappointed her originally." General Morrison snorted. "And how exactly do we prove that?" Our history is filled with wars, environmental destruction, and exploitation. If she's been watching, she's seen us at our worst." The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the truth of that statement. Humanity's expansion into space had indeed been marked by conflict: the Martian Independence War, the asteroid mining conflicts, the ongoing tensions with the Jovian colonies. Even now, in the face of extinction, the various human factions struggled to work together. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the bunker. Communications Officer Lisa Park looked up from her console, her face white with shock. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission. It's not from the approaching fleet. It's coming from inside Earth's atmosphere." The main screen flickered to life, showing Queen Zephyra once again. But this time, she appeared to be standing in a vast chamber filled with technological wonders that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements seamlessly. Behind her, other beings moved with purpose. Some appeared humanoid. Others were clearly alien, all working together in perfect harmony. "Council of the Youngest," Queen Zephyra's voice echoed through the bunker. "I speak to you now from the heart of your world, from the chambers that have slept beneath your feet for 2 million years. The sites you call ancient mysteries are my monitoring stations, and through them, I have watched your entire history unfold." President Vasquez found her voice. "Your Majesty, we request an audience. There's much we need to discuss about humanity's place in—" Queen Zephyra held up a hand, silencing her. "You will have your audience, child. But first, you must understand what you are and why you were made. Your species was not meant to be a weapon, yet you have turned yourselves into one. You were not meant to consume worlds, yet you strip planets bare for resources. You were not meant to war among yourselves, yet your history is written in blood." The display shifted, showing images from across human space, orbital factories pumping out pollution, asteroid mining operations that left debris fields, military vessels patrolling territorial boundaries. From an outside perspective, humanity looked like a plague spreading across the galaxy. "But," Queen Zephyra continued, her expression softening slightly, "you have also shown capacity for growth, for love, for sacrifice, for protecting those weaker than yourselves. This gives me hope that my experiment was not entirely in vain." Dr. Tanaka leaned forward. "Experiment? What experiment?" Queen Zephyra's image turned to look directly at her, as if she could see through the screen. "The experiment of free will, young scientist. Every other species in the celestial dominion is guided by genetic programming that ensures harmony and cooperation. But I wanted to see what would happen if a species was given true choice, the ability to be good or evil, to create or destroy, to love or hate." The revelation hit the council like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were a deliberate experiment in consciousness and free will. Every war, every act of love, every moment of creativity or destruction had been observed and catalogued by their creator. "The results," Queen Zephyra continued, "have been both magnificent and terrifying. You have created art that moves souls across species barriers. You have made scientific discoveries that advance the entire Dominion's understanding of the universe. You have shown compassion to species that attacked you first," Admiral Zhang dared to ask. "And the terrifying parts." Queen Zephyra's expression hardened. "You have weaponized everything you've discovered. You poison your own birth world while reaching for the stars. You cannot see another human without trying to determine if they're a threat or a resource. You have taken the gift of free will and used it to choose the worst possible paths." The chamber fell silent as the weight of judgment settled over them. They were facing not just an alien invasion, but a reckoning with their creator, a being who had given them the capacity for both greatness and horror, and was now returning to see which path they had chosen. President Vasquez straightened in her chair, finding reserves of dignity she didn't know she possessed. "Then judge us fairly, Your Majesty. See all of what we are, not just our failures." Queen Zephyra's image flickered with what might have been surprise. "Very well, youngest daughter. You will have 18 of your hours to present your case. Choose your representatives wisely. The fate of your entire species hangs in the balance." The selection process for humanity's representatives took place in the most secure conference room on Earth, with leaders arguing passionately about who should speak for the species. Time was running short, and every decision could mean the difference between survival and extinction. President Vasquez stood at the head of the table, her voice cutting through the debates. "We need more than politicians and military leaders. Queen Zephyra said she's been watching our entire history. She'll want to see representatives of what humanity actually is, not just who leads it. Dr. Maria Santos, a child psychologist from São Paulo, raised her hand tentatively. If I may suggest, perhaps we should include people who represent human growth and compassion. Teachers, doctors, artists. People who build rather than destroy. Admiral Zhang nodded slowly. And someone who can speak to our capacity for redemption. Someone who has seen the worst of humanity and chosen to be better. After intense deliberation, they selected their representatives. President Vasquez for leadership, Dr. Tanaka for scientific achievement, Maria Santos for human development and care, Master Sergeant David Kim, a veteran who had become a peace activist after the Martian War, and surprisingly, Commander Sarah Chen, whose discovery had triggered this entire crisis. The meeting location was revealed through another transmission, the ancient chamber beneath the Sphinx in Egypt, now revealed to be a massive technological complex that stretched deep into the Earth's crust. As the human delegation descended through passages that predated recorded history, they marveled at the seamless integration of technology and architecture. The chamber itself defied description. Crystalline structures pulsed with soft light, while organic-looking conduits carried data streams that appeared as flowing rivers of luminescence. At the center sat Queen Zephyra, no longer appearing through a screen but present in the flesh. She was tall, perhaps 8 feet, with features that were unmistakably the template from which humanity had been designed, yet refined and perfected over millions of years of existence. Welcome, children, to the place where your species first drew breath, Queen Zephyra said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. This chamber has monitored every human life for 2 million years. Every birth, every death, every choice that shaped your civilization has been recorded here. Around the chamber, holographic displays showed scenes from human history. The first use of fire, the development of agriculture, the building of cities, the discovery of electricity, and the first steps into space. But interspersed with these achievements were darker images, wars, genocides, environmental destruction, and the suffering humanity had inflicted upon itself. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Your Majesty, may I ask why you chose Earth for this experiment? Why isolate us from the rest of the celestial dominion? Queen Zephyra's expression was unreadable. Because true free will cannot develop under observation. You needed to believe you were alone, that your choices mattered only to yourselves. Only then could we see what you would become when given unlimited potential and no external guidance. Master Sergeant Kim, his voice steady despite the circumstances, asked, "And what have we become in your judgment?" The alien queen stood, her movement graceful despite her imposing size. You have become both beautiful and terrible. You create symphonies that bring tears to beings who have no concept of music. You build hospitals to heal strangers you will never meet. You sacrifice your lives to save others, even members of other species. The holographic displays shifted to show images of human achievements, doctors working in disaster zones, teachers in impoverished areas, scientists sharing discoveries freely, volunteers helping in refugee camps, and countless small acts of kindness recorded throughout history. But, Queen Zephyra's voice hardened, you also destroy without thought. You create weapons capable of ending all life on your world. You are over resources while poisoning the very planet that sustains you. You see differences in appearance, belief, or origin as justification for hatred and violence. The darker images returned. Concentration camps, nuclear weapons, environmental disasters, and the brutal efficiency with which humans could turn against each other. The delegation watched in silence, unable to deny the evidence of their species' capacity for evil. President Vasquez gathered her courage. Your Majesty, we don't deny our failures, but we learn from them. Each generation tries to be better than the last. We've abolished slavery. We're healing our environment. We're learning to resolve conflicts without war. Queen Zephyra turned her ancient eyes toward the president. Are you? Your orbital shipyards produce weapons faster than medical supplies. Your colonial expansion follows the same patterns of exploitation you used on your homeworld. Your genetic experiments border on the creation of new forms of life specifically designed for warfare. Commander Chen stepped forward, surprising herself with her boldness. But we stopped those experiments when we realized the ethical implications. We have laws now, international agreements about genetic modification and weapons development. We're trying to be better. Trying is not sufficient, Queen Zephyra replied. I gave you unlimited potential, and you have used it to become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Do you understand what that means? There are civilizations that have existed for millions of years without a single act of deliberate violence. They look at humanity and see a cancer that must be excised before it spreads. The weight of that statement settled over the delegation. They weren't just fighting for humanity's survival. They were fighting against the perception that their entire species was irredeemably violent. Dr. Santos, speaking for the first time, addressed the Queen with the gentle authority she used with traumatized children. Your Majesty, every child I've worked with has the capacity for both cruelty and kindness. The difference is guidance, opportunity, and choice. Humanity is still very young by your standards. We're still learning how to use the gift you gave us. Queen Zephyra studied the child psychologist with interest. You speak of humanity as children. How interesting. Do you see them that way? Yes, Dr. Santos replied without hesitation. Children with incredible potential, who sometimes make terrible mistakes because they don't yet understand the consequences of their actions. But they can learn. They can grow. They can become better if given the chance. For the first time since the meeting began, Queen Zephyra's expression showed something other than stern judgment, and yet children who play with fire eventually burn down the house. At what point does patience become enabling? At what point does love become neglect? Master Sergeant Kim stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. Your Majesty, I've seen the worst of what humans can do to each other. I participated in it. I was a soldier who believed violence was the only solution to conflict. But I learned that the strongest thing a person can do is choose peace when they have the power to choose war. He gestured to his fellow delegates. Every person in this room represents millions of humans who have made that choice. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be worthy of the gift you gave us. Isn't the attempt itself proof that your experiment succeeded? Queen Zephyra was silent for a long moment, her ancient eyes studying each of the humans before her. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of something that might have been hope. You have surprised me, young ones. In all my observations, I have never seen humans argue not for their superiority, but for their potential for growth. Perhaps there is merit in Dr. Santos's perspective. Perhaps you are indeed still children, learning to use abilities that were never meant to be given to a species so young. The chamber's lighting shifted, becoming warmer, less intimidating. Very well. You will have one chance to prove your case. But know this, the test I will give you cannot be passed through words or promises. You must demonstrate through action that humanity deserves to continue existing. President Vasquez felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of test? Queen Zephyra's smile was enigmatic and terrifying. You will face the same choice that destroyed the last species I granted free will. Let us see if you have learned to choose differently. The chamber transformed around them, walls melting away to reveal a vast space filled with swirling mists and floating platforms. Queen Zephyra gestured, and the mists cleared to show a series of holographic displays depicting a civilization unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Behold the Karens, Queen Zephyra said, her voice heavy with ancient sorrow. The first species I granted true free will, 50 million years before your kind drew breath. The images showed beings of incredible beauty and grace, with crystalline skin that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Their cities floated among the clouds of gas giants, powered by technology that harvested energy directly from stellar radiation. Art, music, and scientific achievement flowed from their civilization like water from a spring. They were magnificent, Queen Zephyra continued. In 3 million years of existence, they never knew war, never experienced hatred, never destroyed their environment. They created wonders that still inspire civilizations across the galaxy. Dr. Tanaka watched in awe as the displays showed Karen scientists unlocking the secrets of faster-than-light travel, their artists creating symphonies that could be felt across dimensional barriers, their philosophers developing concepts of consciousness that expanded understanding throughout the celestial dominion. But like you, Queen Zephyra's voice darkened. They were curious. They pushed boundaries. They asked questions that perhaps should not have been asked. The displays shifted to show Karen scientists working with strange dark energy that seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. The equations they worked with hurt to look at directly, containing mathematical concepts that the human mind couldn't quite grasp. They discovered how to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together, Queen Zephyra explained. They learned to edit the laws of physics themselves, to rewrite the basic code of existence. And they asked themselves a question that has haunted me ever since. If we can change reality itself, why should we accept any limitations at all? Commander Chen felt her stomach drop as she began to understand where this was leading. They tried to remake the universe in their own image. Worse, Queen Zephyra replied. They succeeded. The holographic displays now showed the Karen homeworld, but it was wrong in ways that defied description. The laws of physics operated differently there. Water flowed upward, gravity worked in impossible directions, and the very concept of cause and effect had been twisted into new forms. The Karens themselves had changed, becoming beings of pure thought and energy, no longer bound by physical form. At first they were intoxicated by their newfound power, Queen Zephyra continued. They could create new forms of matter, new types of energy, new dimensions of space. They thought they had achieved godhood. Master Sergeant Kim studied the displays with the eye of a soldier who had seen the aftermath of many conflicts. But power like that comes with a price. Indeed, Queen Zephyra nodded. They began to lose themselves. Without physical form, without limitations, without the necessity of cooperation or compromise, they became isolated, each existing in their own personal reality. The very bonds that held their society together, shared experience, common challenges, mutual dependence, ceased to exist. The displays showed the final days of the Karen civilization. Individual Karens, now godlike beings of pure energy, fought reality-warping battles that tore holes in the fabric of space-time itself. Each one tried to impose their vision of existence on the others, creating paradoxes and contradictions that threatened to unravel the entire universe. The war lasted only moments in linear time, Queen Zephyra said, but those moments echoed across eternity. I was forced to intervene, to contain the damage they had done to reality itself. The cost was enormous. Entire star systems had to be quarantined, dimensional barriers reinforced, and the very laws of physics stabilized to prevent further cascading failures. Dr. Santos, her voice barely a whisper, asked, "What happened to them?" "They destroyed themselves," Queen Zephyra replied simply. "In trying to become gods, they lost the very thing that made them worthy of existence, their connection to each other and to the reality they shared. They became so powerful that they forgot why power was worth having. The implications hung heavy in the air. This was the test humanity faced, not a battle or a puzzle to solve, but a choice about what they would do with unlimited power when it was offered to them." President Vasquez straightened her shoulders. "And now you're offering us the same choice." Queen Zephyra waved her hand and the chamber filled with new displays. These showed technology beyond human comprehension. Devices that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. Computers that could process the thoughts of entire civilizations. Weapons that could extinguish stars with a thought. "The technology exists," Queen Zephyra said. "I could give it to you now. Unlimited energy, perfect control over matter and energy, the ability to reshape reality according to your will. You could solve every problem your species faces. Hunger, disease, death itself could become optional. You could become gods. The temptation was overwhelming. With technology like that, humanity could heal their damaged homeworld, expand across the galaxy without conflict, eliminate poverty and suffering forever. They could become the greatest civilization in the universe's history, but the example of the Karen served as a terrible warning. Power without wisdom, ability without restraint, technology without ethics. These things led not to transcendence but to destruction. Admiral Zhang, his strategic mind working through the implications, asked, "And if we refuse?" "Then you remain as you are," Queen Zephyra replied. "Limited, mortal, struggling with the basic challenges of existence, but also connected to each other, bound by shared experiences, forced to cooperate and compromise to survive. You remain human." The chamber fell silent as the 5 representatives grappled with the choice before them. It wasn't really about technology or power. It was about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. Commander Chen found herself thinking about her crew aboard the mining station, the way they had worked together in crisis, supporting each other despite their different backgrounds and beliefs. That cooperation hadn't come from strength but from necessity. from the recognition that they needed each other to survive. Dr. Tanaka considered the scientific method itself, the way knowledge advanced through collaboration, peer review, and shared experimentation. The greatest discoveries came not from individual genius, but from the accumulated efforts of countless researchers building on each other's work. Dr. Santos thought about the children she worked with, how they learned and grew through interaction with others, how their capacity for empathy developed through experiencing both kindness and loss, joy and disappointment. Growth required vulnerability. Master Sergeant Kim remembered the moments of brotherhood he had experienced in combat, not the violence, but the way soldiers looked out for each other, the bonds forged through shared hardship and mutual dependence. Those connections had been more valuable than any weapon. President Vasquez thought about democracy itself, messy, inefficient, frustrating, but ultimately based on the idea that collective wisdom was better than individual power, that progress came through compromise and consensus rather than unilateral control. The choice was becoming clear, but it was also the most difficult decision any human had ever been asked to make. They were being offered godhood, and they had to decide whether their humanity was worth more than unlimited power. Queen Zephyra watched them struggle with the decision, her ancient eyes showing both hope and fear. Choose wisely, children. This is the test that determines not just your survival, but the survival of free will itself in this universe. The 5 representatives stood in silence for what felt like hours, each grappling with the magnitude of the choice before them. The weight of speaking for an entire species pressed down on them like the gravity of a collapsing star. President Vasquez finally stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. Your Majesty, before we answer, may I ask you something? Queen Zephyra inclined her head slightly. You've lived for millions of years. You've seen civilizations rise and fall. You've watched species make this choice before. In all that time, what have you learned about the nature of existence itself? The ancient being considered the question for a long moment. I have learned that consciousness is the universe's way of understanding itself. That intelligence without compassion becomes tyranny. That power without purpose becomes destruction. And that the greatest achievements come not from what a being can do alone, but from what they choose to do together. Dr. Tanaka spoke up. Then you already know our answer, don't you? Queen Zephyra's expression was unreadable. I know what you should choose. I do not know what you will choose. That is the nature of free will. It must be exercised freely or it is not will at all. Commander Chen stepped forward, surprising herself with her boldness. May I share something, Your Majesty? When we discovered the facility on Kepler 442c, my first instinct was to secure it, to extract the technology for human use. But my crew, ordinary people, not leaders or philosophers, their first concern was for the beings in stasis. They wanted to know if we could help them, if they were suffering, if they needed care. She paused, gathering her thoughts. That's what humanity is, Your Majesty. Yes, we're violent and destructive and greedy, but we're also capable of looking at strangers, even alien strangers, and feeling concern for their well-being. We make mistakes, but we also make sacrifices for people we'll never meet. Master Sergeant Kim nodded. I've seen soldiers give their lives to save enemy civilians. I've seen enemies become friends after working together to help disaster victims. War brings out the worst in us, but it also reveals something remarkable. That humans will risk everything to protect others, even when there's no reward for doing so, Dr. Santos added quietly. The children I work with often come from terrible situations. Abuse, poverty, war. But they still laugh. They still play. They still show kindness to other children who are suffering. Resilience isn't about power. It's about continuing to love despite being hurt. Admiral Zhang, who had been silent, finally spoke. Your Majesty, if you give us that technology, we might use it to solve our problems quickly. But we would lose something essential in the process. We would lose the struggle that makes us who we are. President Vasquez looked at each of her fellow representatives, seeing in their faces the same resolution she felt in her own heart. Your Majesty, we refuse your gift. The words hung in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. They had just turned down godhood, rejected unlimited power, chosen limitation over transcendence. Queen Zephyra was absolutely still for several heartbeats. Then slowly her stern expression began to change. The alien features that had seemed so cold and judgmental softened, and something that might have been tears gathered in her ancient eyes. Oh, my children, she whispered. her voice breaking with emotion spanning millions of years. My beautiful, stubborn, impossible children. She stood and approached them, no longer the terrifying judge of humanity, but something else entirely. Do you understand what you have just done? In 50 million years, across countless species and civilizations, you are only the second to refuse that offer. And the first was... She paused as if the words were difficult to say. The first was myself. The revelation hit them like a physical blow. Queen Zephyra herself had once faced this choice, had once been offered unlimited power and had chosen differently. I was young then, she continued, barely older than your species is now. Another entity, one of the first conscious beings in the universe, offered me the same choice I just offered you, the power to remake reality, to become a god, to never again face limitation or loss or death. She gestured to the chamber around them, to the technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. I refused. I chose to remain bound by the laws of physics, by mortality, by the need to cooperate and compromise with others. And in doing so, I discovered something remarkable. The displays around them shifted, showing images of Queen Zephyra's civilization, not the Karens but her own species, beings who looked remarkably like humans but refined by millions of years of careful development. We grew slowly, carefully, always maintaining our connections to each other and to the reality we shared. We learned to extend our lives without abandoning our mortality. We developed technology without losing our humanity. We became powerful without becoming gods. President Vasquez stared at the images. This is what humanity could become? This is what humanity will become, Queen Zephyra corrected. You have passed the test, my children. You have proven that free will, when properly exercised, leads not to destruction but to wisdom. You have shown that you understand the difference between power and strength, between ability and worth. She gestured again, and the chamber filled with new images. Human colonies working in harmony with alien species. Earth restored to its natural beauty. Technologies that enhanced life without replacing it. Art and music and literature that spoke to beings across the galaxy. But, Commander Chen said, won't we still make mistakes? Won't we still have wars and conflicts and all the problems that made you doubt us? Queen Zephyra smiled, and for the first time she looked not like an alien judge but like a proud parent. Of course you will. Growth requires mistakes. Learning requires failure. Progress requires the freedom to choose wrongly so that you can also choose rightly. Dr. Tanaka asked, what happens now? Do we return to Earth and pretend this never happened? No, Queen Zephyra replied. Now the real work begins. I will not give you the technology that would make you gods, but I will help you develop the wisdom to use the technology you create responsibly. The celestial dominion will no longer observe humanity from a distance. You will join us as equals, as a species that has proven worthy of the greatest gift in the universe. Which is? Master Sergeant Kim asked. Queen Zephyra's expression grew serious. The gift of teaching others. You see, children, the cycle continues. Across the galaxy, new species are developing consciousness, are approaching the point where they must face the same choice you just faced, and they will need teachers, beings who understand both the temptation of unlimited power and the wisdom to refuse it. The implications were staggering. Humanity wouldn't just be joining galactic civilization, they would be helping to guide it, sharing the hard-won wisdom that came from choosing limitation over power. Dr. Santos smiled. So we'll be teachers. The best kind of teachers, Queen Zephyra replied. Those who have learned from their mistakes and can help others avoid making the same ones. Those who understand that the greatest strength comes not from what you can do to others, but from what you choose to do for others. As they prepared to return to the surface, to begin the process of introducing humanity to its larger cosmic family, Queen Zephyra placed a hand on President Vasquez's shoulder. I am proud of you, daughter, all of you. You have justified my faith in the experiment of free will. You have proven that consciousness, when properly guided, can choose wisdom over power, love over dominance, cooperation over control. The chamber began to fade around them as they were transported back to the surface, but Queen Zephyra's final words followed them. Welcome to the family, children of Earth. The universe has been waiting for you. 6 months after first contact, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital station above Earth, watching ships from a dozen different worlds dock at the diplomatic complex. The transformation had been remarkable. not just in technology but in humanity itself. The integration hadn't been easy. Revealing the truth about humanity's origins had caused upheaval across every major government and religious institution on Earth. Some groups had declared Queen Zephyra a false god. Others had tried to worship her as the true creator. But gradually, as more evidence emerged and as contact with other species became routine, humanity had begun to adapt to its new reality. Dr. Tanaka approached, carrying a datapad filled with reports from the surface. The agricultural exchange program is exceeding all projections. The Viridian photosynthesis enhancement techniques have increased crop yields by 40%, without any environmental damage. Sarah nodded, still amazed by how quickly things had changed. The Celestial Dominion hadn't simply shared advanced technology. They had taught humanity how to develop it responsibly, how to enhance their capabilities without losing their essential nature. "Any word from the Kepler expedition?" Sarah asked. Dr. Webb reports that they've successfully revived the first group of stasis pods. The beings inside are humans, but from our original genetic template. They're calling them the Founders. The discovery of the Founder civilization had been perhaps the most remarkable development of all. These were humans as Queen Zephyra had first designed them, longer-lived, more resistant to disease and radiation, with enhanced cognitive abilities but still fundamentally human. They served as a bridge between modern humanity and their cosmic heritage. President Vasquez's voice came through the comm system. "Commander Chen, please report to Conference Room Alpha. We have a situation that requires your expertise." Sarah made her way through the station's corridors, still marveling at the blend of human and alien technology that made up their new shared spaces. The architecture somehow managed to feel both familiar and otherworldly, with curves and angles that pleased both human and alien sensibilities. The conference room held an impressive gathering: President Vasquez, Queen Zephyra, and representatives from several Celestial Dominion species. But what caught Sarah's attention was the holographic display showing a star system she didn't recognize. "Commander," President Vasquez said, "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Keth Moore of the Resonance Collective." The being that stepped forward was unlike anything Sarah had seen before. Crystalline structures that seemed to sing as they moved, emitting harmonic frequencies that somehow conveyed meaning directly to her mind. When it spoke, she heard the words both audibly and as musical notes. "Commander Chen," the crystal being chimed, "your species has been selected for a crucial mission. We have discovered a young civilization that is approaching the same choice your people faced. They require guidance from those who have walked this path." Queen Zephyra gestured to the holographic display. "The Valorians. They developed consciousness roughly 50,000 years ago and have recently achieved interstellar travel. They are technologically gifted but aggressive, much as humans were at a similar stage of development." Sarah studied the images of Valorian society. The beings were roughly humanoid, but with metallic skin and multiple arms that seemed designed for manipulation of complex machinery. Their cities were marvels of engineering, but she could see the signs of environmental damage and social stratification that had once plagued human civilization. "What kind of guidance are we talking about?" Sarah asked. Dr. Santos, now serving as humanity's first xenopsychologist, stepped forward. "They're facing a crisis. Their homeworld is dying due to industrial pollution. Their colonies are in conflict over resources, and they've recently developed weapons capable of destroying entire planets." Sound familiar? It did sound familiar, remarkably so. The Valorians seemed to be following the same destructive path that had nearly led humanity to extinction before they learned to work together. Master Sergeant Kim, now head of the new Interspecies Diplomatic Corps, added, "But here's the interesting part. They've received the same offer your species did. An entity similar to Queen Zephyra has appeared to them, offering unlimited power in exchange for abandoning their current limitations." The implications were staggering. Another species was facing the ultimate test of free will, and humanity had been chosen to help guide them through it. Queen Zephyra spoke, her voice carrying the weight of eons. "This is why your species was so important, why the experiment had to succeed. You understand both the temptation of unlimited power and the wisdom to reject it. You can speak to them not as beings who never faced that choice, but as people who made the right decision despite understanding the cost." Sarah felt the magnitude of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. But what if we're wrong? What if our choice was the wrong one? What if they need that power to survive? Queen Zephyra's expression was compassionate but firm. Then they will make their own choice and the universe will learn from the consequences. That is the nature of free will. It must be exercised freely even if the choice seems wrong to others. Admiral Zhang, now commanding the joint Human Dominion Exploration Fleet, pulled up tactical displays. The situation is complicated by the fact that the Valorians are not unified. Some factions want to accept the offer of unlimited power, others are suspicious of it, and a third group wants to continue their current path of expansion and conquest. Civil war? Sarah asked. Potentially. And with the weapons they've developed, a civil war could devastate entire star systems. President Vasquez turned to Sarah. We're putting together a diplomatic mission. Given your role in our first contact, Queen Zephyra has specifically requested that you lead the human contingent. Sarah looked around the room at the assembled beings, human and alien, all working together to address a crisis that could affect the entire galaxy. 6 months ago, she had been a mining station commander dealing with equipment failures and supply shortages. Now she was being asked to help prevent an interstellar war, while guiding another species through the most important choice they would ever make. What makes you think they'll listen to us? She asked. Ambassador Kethmore's crystalline structure resonated with what might have been amusement. Because you have something they need, credibility. You are a young species that has faced the same challenges they face. You have made mistakes and learned from them. You are not ancient beings offering wisdom from on high, but peers sharing hard-won experience. Dr. Tanaka added, and because you can show them what's possible, Earth's restoration, the peaceful expansion of human colonies, the cooperation between species, these things demonstrate that there's an alternative to the path of destruction. Queen Zephyra stood, her presence commanding attention from every being in the room. The ship is prepared, the crew selected from multiple species to demonstrate the cooperation that is possible. You leave in 3 days. As the meeting dispersed, Sarah found herself alone with Queen Zephyra. The ancient being studied her with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. You're afraid? Queen Zephyra observed. Terrified, Sarah admitted. What if I say the wrong thing? What if my advice leads them to destruction? Queen Zephyra smiled, an expression that transformed her alien features into something almost maternal. Do you know what convinced me that humanity had truly learned the lesson of free will? Sarah shook her head. It was not your rejection of unlimited power, though that was important. It was the fact that you continue to doubt yourselves, to question your decisions, to worry about the consequences of your choices. Beings who have learned wisdom are always afraid of the responsibility that comes with it. The ancient being placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. You will not have all the answers, child. You will make mistakes. But you will also show them something invaluable, that it is possible to choose growth over power, cooperation over dominance, wisdom over knowledge. As Sarah prepared for humanity's first mission as teachers and guides to another species, she reflected on how far they had all come. 6 months ago, they had been judged and found wanting. Now they were being trusted to help another species avoid the same mistakes. The universe was vast and full of species facing the same fundamental choice between power and wisdom, between dominance and cooperation, and somehow, incredibly, humanity had become the teachers, the guides, the ones who had learned to choose correctly. It was a responsibility that would define their species for generations to come. But looking out at the ships from a dozen worlds working together in Earth's orbit, Sarah felt confident that humanity was finally ready for the role they had been created to play. The experiment in free will had succeeded. Now it was time to help others succeed as well. The adventure was just beginning.